Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top stories that we're tracking for you this Monday evening. United Nations calls for restraint after Iran launches a swarm of missile and drone attacks at Israel. US helps Israel intercept most of them but refuses to take part in any retaliatory strikes. Israel's war cabinet is likely to meet once again to discuss potential action. India's External Affairs Minister dials his counterparts in Israel and Iran, expressing concern and calling for a de-escalation. Iran promises to allow Indian officials to meet the 17 Indian crew members of a detained cargo ship. 18,000 Indians estimated to be living in Israel. 4,000 Indians are likely to be in Iran. Stock markets wobble across the world as geopolitical tensions rise in the Middle East. The sensex and the nifty hit a two-week low. Crude oil market on the tenterhooks. Prices of aluminum and nickel rally after the US and UK impose new sanctions on metals produced in Russia. Vodafone Idea launches India's largest follow-on public offer at a price band of 10 to 11 rupees a share, hopes to raise 18,000 crore rupees, plans to launch 5G services to cover 40% of its revenue base once the money's in. Baiju Ravindran, back in the saddle, will head daily operations at the edtech giant, reorganizes its management structure. Arjun Mohan resigns as Baiju's India CEO, transitions to an external advisory role. Baiju's also announces its shareholders have approved increasing authorized share capital of the company to enable the rights issue, but it cannot use the funds until the court ruling in the matter. India's Met Department predicts an above-normal monsoon this year, expects the weakening El Nino and developing La Nina conditions to be a positive for rain. Private weather forecaster SkyMet has also predicted a normal monsoon. With days to go for Elon Musk to visit India, sources say Tesla is likely to sign a deal with Tata Group to procure semiconductors. Tesla is eyeing local supply for chips, battery and other EV infrastructure as it gears up to announce a manufacturing facility in India. Elon Musk is a supporter of India, says Prime Minister Modi in an interview to ANI. Also defends the electoral bond scheme, says no one should be scared and decisions are not taken to scare or run over anyone. The Election Commission seizes cash, liquor and other inducements for voters worth over 4,600 crore rupees since the Model Code of Conduct came into effect. Seizures worth over 12,000 crore rupees have been made since the start of 2024. 3 times higher than the total seizures worth nearly 3,500 crores made during the 2019 elections. No relief yet for Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal in the liquor policy case. He will remain in jail at least until the 29th of April, when the Supreme Court will hear the case again. The Apex Court issues a notice to the Enforcement Directorate seeking its response. Election campaign hits fever pitch in Tamil Nadu's Coimbatore. A three-way battle is brewing, with the BJP fielding its state unit president Annamalai against DMK and AIA-DMK candidates. Economy and jobs, the key issues in what is one of the state's industrial hubs. A special report coming up. Former American President Donald Trump's historic criminal trial over hush money allegation begins. Trump is accused of paying campaign money to 2 women to hide his sexual affairs ahead of the 2016 presidential elections. Well, we do have a packed lineup for you, but let's start with the market action. As always, rising geopolitical tensions in the Middle East have impacted market sentiment across the world, keeping investors on tenterhooks across the world, and India no exception today. So you saw the sensex down by about 800 points, 845 to be precise. The nifty down 246. The mid-cap index lost about 800 points, and the nifty bank was down by about 800 points as well. So across the board, we saw pressure coming in, the markets closing at their lowest level in 2 weeks. That was the story that played out. Meanwhile, foreign portfolio investors have turned negative for the month of April after an aggressive buying in March. FPIs have sold shares worth $1.3 billion in the last 2 sessions, making them net sellers of Indian equities so far in April. Staying with the numbers, but this time it's macros. India's trade deficit narrowing to $240 billion in FY24 from over $260 billion in the previous year. Exports in the period fell to about $437 billion, while imports stood at $677 billion. The trade deficit in March also fell to $15.6 billion when compared to nearly $19 billion in March 2023. That's the trade data for you. The big international story that we continue to track, and it's moving markets worldwide. Iran unleashing over 300 drones and missiles into Israel on Sunday, setting afoot the possibility of a larger regional conflict. Israel's military says a large number of the projectiles were intercepted outside of the country's borders with the help of the US, UK and France. Iran's aggression comes as a retaliation to Israel's attack on its consulate in Syria earlier this month. The UN Security Council gathered for an urgent meeting to address the escalating tensions. Israel called for fresh sanctions on Iran. Iran hit back, saying it has the right to self-defense after Israel attacked its consulate. The UN Secretary General has called for restraint, saying the world cannot afford another war. G7 leaders held a virtual meeting condemning Iran's attack, reaffirming their commitment to Israel's security, but the US has refused to take part in any retaliatory action against Iran. The regional flare-up has sparked trouble for airlines, with many airlines, including Qantas, United and Air India, suspending operations to these regions or having to fly over these regions. Israel's war cabinet holding a meeting to discuss the next course of action.
This attack crossed every red line, and Israel reserves the legal right to retaliate. We are not a frog in boiling water. We are a nation of lions. Following such a massive and direct attack on Israel, the entire world, let alone Israel, cannot settle for inaction. We will defend our future.
Iran's operation was entirely in the exercise of Iran's inherent right to self-defense, as outlined in Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations and recognized by international law. This concluded action was necessary and proportionate. It was precise and only targeted military objectives and carried out carefully to minimize the potential for escalation and prevent civilian harm.
Well, reactions there from the UN Security Council meeting. Now, India's External Affairs Minister has dialed his counterparts in Israel and Iran, expressing concern, calling for a de-escalation. Parikshit standing by now to take us through where things currently stand. Parikshit, Iran and Israel's war out in the open. What has India's response been so far? And, the predicament that we find ourselves in when we talk about Indian nationals both in Israel and Iran.
India has expressed serious concern about the escalation of tensions in the Middle East. The Foreign Minister, Subramanyam Jaishankar, has spoken to his counterparts both in Israel and Iran, expressing concern and asking both sides to maintain restraint and come to the negotiating table to solve all issues diplomatically. So what are some of the immediate concerns for India? First of all, there were 16 or 17 Indian crew members on board the MSC Ares, Israel-affiliated ship which has been seized by Iranian authorities. India has sought the release of all those 17 Indian crewmen. We haven't heard about them as yet. On the other side, there are also 60 to 64 Indian nationals who recently traveled to Israel as per a work agreement between the two countries. So India has not called them back, but there is now a temporary pause on that agreement, and no more workers will be going there till further notice. On a larger note, you've got 18,000 Indian nationals working and studying in Israel. You've got around 4,000 NRIs in Iran. So they do face a lot of uncertainty and questions related to security, because there is definitely a situation which is deteriorating on the ground. India so far has advised all Indian nationals to register with the embassy, be very careful, be in touch with law enforcement authorities, stay safe, not go to any areas where there could be a possible conflict. They've also advised Indian nationals to not travel from India to either Israel or Iran at this juncture. Now, whether there will be some sort of repatriation from Israel and Iran that would take place, no word on that. The Indian government does not want to create panic. But yes, they are looking out for the situation very closely and monitoring the situation of Indian nationals and their safety as well.
Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. That is the latest in the Israel-Iran conflict. The big corporate story, cash-starved Vodafone Idea has said that it plans to roll out 5G services after completing the mega 18,000 crore rupee fund infusion through its upcoming follow-on public offer. Rima standing by now to take us through the FPO and what it intends to do with the funds raised. Rima, tell us more about Vodafone's attempt to script a fight back.
Vodafone Idea is launching the biggest ever FPO of 18,000 crore rupees at a price between 10 to 11 rupees from this Thursday. This is a much awaited fundraise by this telecom major, and it will kickstart their capex plans. The company is underinvested in 5G and 4G, and the company's priority with this fundraise, why this FPO, is going to expand their 4G coverage and start their 5G rollout. Today, the top team of Vodafone Idea held a press conference where they chatted with people from the media, and these are some of the key takeaways. One, on 5G rollout. The company said that they will begin their 5G rollout with this round of funding. Their goal is to cover 40% of their revenue base with 5G in the next 2 to 2.5 years. Secondly, the growth driver is to improve ARPUs. How will they do it? One, convert their existing 2G subscribers to 4G, and plus look at a tariff hike. So the company said 42% of their subscribers are still 2G, and therefore there is a big runway ahead of the company to convert these 2G subscribers into 4G, which will boost the company's ARPUs. On tariffs, the company did acknowledge that tariff corrections, tariff repairs are required, but they cannot give a timeline. But they did say that India's tariffs are the lowest in the world. And just to give you, illustrate this with an example, India's ARPU is at $2.08, while China is at $6.64, which means 3x that. We quizzed them again on when will this tariff hike take place, and they said that we have an internal expectation, but they can't share when the timeline is. But it's reasonable to expect that we will see a tariff hike which is similar to the previous tariff hike, and the last two tariff hikes were to the tune of 20%. Also on government support. Now remember, the government is the single largest stakeholder in Vodafone Idea. They hold about 32% stake. Post this FPO, their holding will come down to 24%. The street fear is that the company will not be able to meet its obligations to the government once that 4-year moratorium ends in September of 2025. So we asked the company that what is the government's thinking? Are they planning to give any sort of a relief once this moratorium ends? To which they're saying, well, there is no ongoing conversation with the government because it's still, some time away, September of 2025. But the reform package, which was announced, does allow for some installments to be converted into equity. But they did imply that the government support is very much there. The government is backing this.
Excluding only the millimeter wave, which is not likely to be used soon, per million subscriber, and 5G spectrum per 4 million per million 4G subscribers. And whichever way you look at it, you will see that we have a very competitive spectrum portfolio. We have 5G spectrum in 17 of our priority circles, which account for 98% of our revenue. And with this round of funding, we will roll out our 5G network also.
Well, that's Vodafone Idea on their FPO as well as their attempts to reclaim market share. Vedanta has mandated JP Morgan Chase to help it raise $300 million via rupee-denominated bonds. According to a money control report, the tenor of the proposed bonds expected to be in the range of 3 to 5 years. The company's also secured an 11-year term loan of nearly 4,000 crore rupees from Power Finance Corporation. According to PTI, Vedanta plans to utilize the funds to expedite its power projects. Byju's shareholders have approved a rights issue allowing the company to raise funds. However, the funds received will have to be kept in an escrow account for now. Further, the EdTech CEO Arjun Mohan has resigned to take up an external advisory role. Founder Byju Ravindran, now back in charge of operations. Ritu is standing by with more on the rights issue as well as Mohan's resignation. Ritu, let's start with Mohan's resignation. 7 months in and already out, Byju's back in the saddle.
Byju Ravindran is tightening his hold over Byju's India operations, stepping back into the saddle to run the day-to-day operations of the company after a gap of nearly 4 years. Now, this comes after Byju's announced a strategic reorganization in its management structure, where it said Arjun Mohan was resigning as the India CEO and transitioning into an external advisory role, while Ravindran is going to be deeply involved in the company's daily operations and business. Now, Byju said these changes follow an extensive review review and cost optimization exercise, which incidentally was led by the outgoing India CEO Arjun Mohan. Now, Baiju Ravindran's return as the active India CEO is coming at a very difficult time for the company. It is facing a liquidity crunch, the valuation has plummeted, financial reporting has been delayed, it is facing multiple litigations from investors to creditors, and is also under ED scrutiny. So you have Ravindran, who was focused on the global operations and the fundraising of the company since 2019, coming back after a 4-year hiatus to take matters into his hands. This is also the second CEO exit at Baiju's India within the span of 1 year. You had Mrinal Mohit serving as the CEO for less than a year, resigning in September last year, and now Arjun Mohan, who barely served for 7 months. With Baiju Ravindran getting more involved and Akash, an important subsidiary of the company, also getting a new CEO, we've been given to understand that Arjun Mohan, a long-time Baiju's executive who had left to head UpGrab briefly before returning as Baiju's India CEO, chose to resign and look for other opportunities. Separately, Baiju said its shareholders have approved to increase the authorized share capital of the company by a 55% majority, and the process has been scrutinized by an independent third party. This, Baiju said, is going to pave the way for the rights issue, which is aimed at tackling the liquidity crunch, including unpaid salaries, vendor dues, etc. But an NCLT order prevents the company from using these funds just yet, and the next hearing in this matter is scheduled for the 23rd of April.
All right, Ritu, many thanks for joining us. That's the latest at Baiju's. Now, with days to go for Elon Musk to visit India, sources say Tesla and the Tata Group are set to join hands. Tesla is likely to procure semiconductors from Tata Electronics as it eyes local sourcing for allied EV infrastructure. Tesla is also expected to announce a manufacturing facility in India during Musk's visit next week. Nisha standing by with the details. Nisha, what do we know?
Well, that's right. As Elon Musk's visit to India nears, there's a lot of anticipation on the big announcements coming in from Tesla, especially about the electric vehicle manufacturing facility right here in India. But along with that, the local support system of allied facilities and infrastructure and components will be very critical for sourcing those for Tesla's manufacturing. And therefore, that could be on top of mind for Tesla as well as it lays out plan for India manufacturing. And therefore, sources with direct knowledge have shared with us that Tesla could be in talks with several business houses and domestic manufacturing units for building that infrastructure and also surety of supply chain for its manufacturing facility. And in that, we do gather from sources with direct knowledge that Tata Group's Tata Electronics could be partnering with Tesla for the supply of semiconductor chips, which is very, very critical for the EV facility and manufacturing. Now, we have seen at the peak of COVID crisis and in geopolitical crisis that the shortage of chips have impacted several industries. In fact, that is one of the big reasons why Tata Group entered and announced the foray into semiconductor chip manufacturing for self-reliance of India. And therefore, Tesla could be looking at averting the risks of shortage of chips and also getting into partnership so that it secures the chip supply for its EV manufacturing facility in India. So that's what we are gathering. Many other tie-ups and partnerships with local players cannot be ruled out, but all eyes would be on Elon Musk's meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also giving concrete plans of the electric vehicle manufacturing facility here in India.
Nisha, many thanks. In fact, Prime Minister Modi has called Tesla's Elon Musk a supporter of India. He spoke to ANI about Musk's proposed visit to India next week. The Prime Minister said everyone is welcome to invest in India if they provide job opportunities for the youth. Take a look.
एलन मस्क मोदी के प्रशंसक है, वो अपनी जगह पे है। मूलतः वो भारत के प्रशंसक है। भारत बहुत तेजी से ईवी पे जा रहा है। मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करना चाहते वो आना चाहे आइए। इतना ही नहीं, मैं चाहता हूं हिंदुस्तान में निवेश आना चाहिए, क्योंकि भारत में वो चीज़ें जिसमें भले पैसा किसी का भी लगा हो, पसीना मेरे देश का लगना चाहिए, उसके अंदर सुगंध मेरे देश की मिट्टी की आनी चाहिए, ताकि मेरे देश के नौजवानों को रोजगार मिले।
Well, that's the Prime Minister on Elon Musk's upcoming visit. And speaking of Tesla, the automaker may be preparing for job cuts globally. As per a report by Reuters, Tesla will lay off about 10% of its global workforce following a slump in sales. Some staff in California and Texas have reportedly already been notified of the layoffs. As of December 2023, Tesla had more than 1.4 lakh employees. No relief yet for Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal in the liquor policy case. He will remain in jail at least until the 29th of April. That is when the Supreme Court will hear the matter again. The Apex Court has issued a notice to the Enforcement Directorate seeking its response. Ashmit joins us more on the legal options for Arvind Kejriwal. Ashmit.
Well, Arvind Kejriwal was hoping for some relief, and if not relief, at least an urgent hearing Friday of this week. The Apex Court, however, not obliging on either of those two counts, deferring the hearing till April 29th, which brings us to the question, what are the legal options available to the Delhi Chief Minister? Well, there are three options that we can think of. The first is the plain vanilla approach, which is to wait for the Apex Court to take up this matter. Now, this has its own set of challenges. While there is no guarantee, there is no assurance of relief by the Apex Court. The other, of course, added concern is that even if he is granted relief, even if he is released from jail, that would still raise the question that a very, very limited amount of time would be available to him for electioneering, for campaigning ahead of the upcoming Lok Sabha elections. That's option number one. The option number two is to apply for bail. What's interesting is that despite the time he spent in Tihar, Arvind Kejriwal has not applied for bail so far, but that in itself brings in a fresh set of challenges. The first is that the benchmark for grant of bail is significantly higher under the PMLA. The second is that his party colleagues have also had not such a convenient time. Manish Sisodia behind bars for 12 months, bail denied. Sanjay Singh, it took 6 months for him to get bail. So that in itself could be a challenge. And finally, of course, the fact that he could be picked up by the CBI even if he's granted bail is a concern that we understand is weighing on his mind. And finally, the option number three is to apply for interim bail. Manish Sisodia has been vying for that approach, looking for exceptional relief in terms of time for campaigning, time ahead of the Lok Sabha elections. That is something, however, that the courts have not taken up yet. There have been 4 adjournments, so that option too could entail a significant wait time.
Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. That is the latest there as far as Arvind Kejriwal and his quest for relief. Up next on India Business Hour, election campaign hits fever pitch in Tamil Nadu's Coimbatore. A ground report when we return. Well, with just days left to go for the Lok Sabha polls, the Election Commission of India has revealed that authorities have seized inducements for voters worth 100 crore rupees every single day since the Model Code of Conduct came into effect. As per the data, the Election Commission has seized inducements worth over 4,650 crore rupees. That's only between the 1st of March and the 13th of April. This is a sharp rise from the 3,475 crore rupees seized during the entire period of the Lok Sabha elections in 2019. Now, more than 1,100 crore rupees worth of freebies and 489 crores worth of liquor have been seized during the period. 45% of the seizures are of drugs and narcotics. The total seizures across India so far this year amount to 12,000 crore rupees, even as 6 more weeks are left in the election season. This is 3 times higher than the seizures made during the 2019 elections. Prime Minister Modi accusing opposition parties of spreading lies about the electoral bond scheme. Speaking to ANI, the Prime Minister said the country has been pushed towards black money. He also spoke about his 2047 vision, saying he has big plans for the country and that his decisions are not made to scare anyone or diminish anyone.
इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड न होते तो किस व्यवस्था में ताकत है वो ढूंढ के निकालते कि पैसा कहाँ से आया और कहाँ गया। मैं ये कभी नहीं कहता हूँ निर्णय में कोई कमी नहीं होती है। निर्णय तो चर्चा कर सीखते हैं, सुधारते हैं। इसमें भी सुधार के लिए बहुत संभावना है, लेकिन आज हम पूरी तरह काले धन की तरफ देश को धकेल दिया है और इसलिए मैं कहता हूँ सब लोग पछताएंगे। जब मैं कहता हूँ कि मेरे मन में बहुत बड़े बड़े प्लान है और उसके लिए बहुत बड़े बड़े फैसले हैं, किसी को डरने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। मेरे निर्णय किसी को डराने के लिए नहीं है, किसी को दबाने के लिए भी नहीं है। मेरे निर्णय देश के सर्वांगीण विकास के लिए है।
Well, that's the Prime Minister in conversation with ANI. There's just days to go for the first phase of polling in the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. Tamil Nadu is one of the states that will kick off the electoral process. For the state, the Coimbatore constituency is proving to be a key battleground for the DMK, the AIADMK and the BJP. As part of our ongoing series Election Exchange, Jude travels to Coimbatore reporting that in this industrial town, economic revival is the key talking point, and that's something every party has picked up on. Take a look.
In Coimbatore, there's anticipation in the air as BJP supporters wait for their candidate to arrive. Annamalai Kuppuswamy is not only the BJP's Tamil Nadu president, he is widely recognized as an important part of the party's future leadership. For now, he is also the BJP's Coimbatore candidate, a recent stronghold after the Saffron Party won an assembly seat here in 2021. His focus, should he win, will be to do more than just return the industrial hub to its former glory. This includes plans to automate the town's foundries and organize its component units.
Most of the labours are from North India. Slowly they are trying to move out naturally. Once UP and Bihar starts picking up manufacturing, they'll move out. So we got to automate the foundry. With respect to the automobile, we want to create an automobile cluster. Though you have automobile component manufacturers here and there, but there is no cluster approach for them. We want to do that.
This need to urgently repair the industrial aspect of Coimbatore is not lost on any party. The fight for Coimbatore, a three-cornered one, has moved from open ground to the town's foundries and component-making units. In their campaign speeches, candidates from across the political spectrum have laid emphasis on industry, growth, skilling and jobs. And these promises couldn't come at a more opportune time. MSME units and foundries in Coimbatore say the workforce is in desperate need of skilling.
China, they have 60 training institutes for the foundry alone. In India, not even one industry. I think from the Coimbatore foundries, we are planning one institute. So we are expecting some support from the central government, new government, and also the local government to put up a foundry training institute.
While raw material inflation has hit component makers, foundries say the centre's recent updated list of quality control orders or QCOs, initially meant to keep a check on substandard imports, is hurting local production.
We think that the QCO should cover the finished product and not the raw material products. For us, it will be good to have a strong candidate who can take the interests of our community, that is the MSME manufacturing community, and make our voices heard in the national level.
To be very fair, Annamalai, if elected, yes, naturally, if the centre has a BJP government, it is really going to help Coimbatore. All I would say is, in fact, Coimbatore needs accelerated growth.
Skilling challenges and QCO regulations aside, Coimbatore Inc. also wants the new government to attract big-ticket investments from a major OEM to give MSMEs a boost. On its part, the textile industry wants a PLI scheme of its own that it has been waiting on for several months now. Back on the poll turf, 36-year-old IIMA alumnus Singai Ramachandran is a first-time candidate contesting on an AIADMK ticket. And while industry is his focus too, Ramachandran claims lofty promises don't count for much if basics like escalating power prices aren't kept in check.
many textile industries. So all these industries are suffering because of the EB price hike that has been pushed from the DMK side. And they are saying they are not able to run it as they used to run earlier. Primarily, we should make sure that the native business survive, because you cannot go and ask a mill worker or a lathe workshop person or a person who is working in a foundry to go and do Python or Java coding.
The battle for Coimbatore has hit fever pitch, and it's clear that every candidate knows the industry-centric vote bank holds the key to the constituency. In the 2019 elections, the CPIM won this constituency. Today, the party is letting its stronger and more industry-friendly ally, the DMK, field a candidate of its own. Meanwhile, Annamalai wants to get the constituency back with the BJP after a gap of 20 years. In Coimbatore, Jude Sanath.
The battle for Coimbatore. Jio Financial Services has entered into a joint venture with BlackRock to set up a wealth management company and subsequently a brokerage company in India. Jio Financial Services had jointly applied for a mutual fund license with BlackRock earlier, so that is the latest development coming in from Jio and BlackRock. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Thanks for watching.